Taken captive, the queen offered my freedom if I married her widowed daughter. No choice left. One moment, he was piloting a small freighter through a quiet sector of space, hauling supplies between colonies, and the next, alarms were ringing, lights flashing, and he found himself surrounded by beings he had never seen before. Their ships were massive, dark, and silent in a way that made his chest tighten. They moved like shadows, but with an unnatural grace, as if they had no real weight in space. He tried to call for help, but his communicator was dead. No response came from the Federation or nearby colonies. He was alone, and completely at the mercy of these alien forces. The freighter shook violently as a massive energy field surrounded it, forcing him to stop. Panic surged through him, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had to think. Then the freighter's hull opened like it was alive. Ethan was pulled out by a force he could not resist. He struggled, but it was useless. Inside the alien ship, the walls glowed faintly, and the air smelled different, like metal mixed with something sweet he could not name. The beings who had taken him were tall, with elongated faces and glowing eyes. Their skin shimmered faintly under the light, and their movements were both smooth and deliberate. One of them stepped forward. She was different from the others, her posture regal and commanding. "You are safe for now," she said, her voice melodic but firm. Ethan's stomach turned. He wanted to run, but he knew he could not. Hours passed, or maybe days, it was impossible to tell. Time felt strange aboard the alien ship. The air had a slight warmth, and Ethan noticed that the gravity seemed lighter. He could jump higher and move faster than normal, but it did not make him feel free. He was a prisoner. Finally, he was brought into a room that looked like a throne room from old Earth stories. At the far end, a woman sat, dressed in deep blue robes that shimmered with golden threads. Her hair was silver, flowing like a river, and her eyes seemed to look right through him. "I am Queen Alara," she said. "You are far from your home, human. But you may yet live if you follow the rules here." Ethan swallowed hard. What do you want from me?" His voice shook, though he tried to keep it steady. The queen's lips curved into a faint smile. "I do not want to harm you, but your life is not entirely your own anymore. My daughter, she has lost her husband, and she wishes to have a companion, someone strong and brave as someone who can help her lead." Ethan froze. "You mean you want me to marry her?" the queen said simply. There was no hesitation in her voice. "It is your only choice if you wish to live. Refuse, and you will remain my guest indefinitely. Accept, and you may return to your life in a new way, with a place among my people." The words hit him like a hammer. Ethan had never imagined his life would come to this. He was a simple freighter pilot, used to hauling cargo, not making life-or-death decisions about marrying an alien princess. His mind raced, thinking of the consequences. Could he do this? Could he survive in a world so different from his own? Before he could speak, a young woman entered the room. Her hair was dark, tied in a simple braid, and her eyes were bright but serious. She looked human in shape, though her skin had a faint shimmer like her mother's. "I am Leela," she said quietly. "I understand this is strange for you, but I assure you my mother does not ask lightly. If you agree, you will find honor here, safety, and a life you never imagined." Ethan studied her. She did not speak like a queen. She spoke like someone who had felt pain, someone who had lost, someone who needed strength. He realized that behind the alien royalty, there was a human quality he could relate to. "And if I refuse?" he asked, his voice firmer this time. Queen Alara's smile faded. "Then you will remain with us. You will eat, you will sleep, but you will never leave. You will be safe from harm, but you will never return to your old life." Ethan felt trapped. His life had been ordinary, safe in its own dull way. But the universe had changed that, and now he faced a choice he had never imagined. He thought of home, of Earth, of the friends he had made, and he felt a deep ache. But he also saw the determination in Leela's eyes and the quiet authority in Alara's. These were not beings to be underestimated. He nodded slowly. I will do it, he said. His voice was steady even though his heart pounded. I will marry her, but I need to understand what this life will be like. I am not a noble. I have no experience with politics or leadership or any of this. Leela stepped closer. We will teach you, she said softly. You will learn, and in time you may find that life here is not as foreign as you fear. The queen rose from her throne, her robes flowing behind her. Then it is settled. Ethan Carter, you will be prepared for the ceremony. For now you will stay here under watch and learn the ways of our people. You have courage, human. That is why I have chosen you. Not for your title, not for your wealth, but for your heart. Ethan felt a mixture of fear and awe. He had expected cruelty, imprisonment, maybe even death. But what he faced now was something far stranger. He was caught in a world that moved by rules he barely understood, a world where humans were outsiders, yet still needed. Days passed. Ethan's training began. He learned to walk in the alien palace without stumbling over its smooth, curved floors. He learned to understand the language of their gestures, the subtle ways they communicated with each other. He learned their history, their conflicts, and their hopes. And all the while he watched Leela. She was quiet, often retreating to her own thoughts, but when she spoke with purpose. One evening she approached him while he was practicing a simple exercise in balance and agility. You do not have to like me, she said softly, but you must respect what this is. Not just a marriage, it is survival for both of us. Ethan paused, breathing heavily. I understand, he said. I don't know if I can, but I will try. I have to try. She nodded, and for the first time, Ethan felt a small spark of connection. Despite the alien surroundings, despite the fear and the strangeness, he realized that he was not entirely alone. Leela was here, and together they would face what came next. Later that night, Ethan lay in the quarters assigned to him. He looked out at the stars, unfamiliar constellations stretching across the dark void. Earth seemed impossibly far away, a memory of another life. And yet, he felt a strange sense of purpose rising inside him. He had survived capture, and now he had a chance, not just to live, but to find a place in a world far bigger than he had ever known. Tomorrow, he would meet the Queen again, and the real preparation would begin. He did not know what the future held, but for the first time in his life, he felt ready to face it. And somewhere deep in his mind, a thought took root, quiet but persistent. Maybe he could do more than survive. Maybe he could thrive. The next morning, Ethan awoke to the soft hum of the alien palace. Light filtered through walls that seemed alive, shifting colors as if breathing. He rubbed his eyes, still unused to the strange surroundings. The day would begin with training, Queen Alara had said, and he had learned from Leela that this training was more than physical. It was about understanding the rules of their world, the customs, and the power he would need to survive. Leela was already waiting for him in the courtyard, her dark braids swinging as she moved. You're late, she said lightly, though there was no anger in her voice. I wasn't late, Ethan protested, though he knew she had been awake for some time. The aliens measured time differently, he realized, and he had no sense of what their schedules really meant. Leela smiled faintly and gestured toward the center of the courtyard. The floor was smooth and pale, with strange markings etched into it. Today you will begin your first lesson, she said. Not with weapons, not with politics. First, you must learn to move through this world as we do. Balance, observation, awareness. Ethan followed her, stepping cautiously on the smooth surface. At first he stumbled, unsure of how to interpret the faint vibrations under his feet. The markings seemed to guide him, but he had to focus hard, bending his body in ways he had never imagined. Leela watched silently, her presence steady and calm. Hours passed and Ethan began to understand. The training was more than exercise. It was about seeing, sensing, anticipating. Small things he had ignored on Earth, light shifts, sounds, patterns were crucial here. And as he moved, he felt his fear slowly melting into concentration. By mid-afternoon, Queen Alara herself entered the courtyard. Her presence was commanding, yet graceful. She wore a robe of deep green this time, her silver hair catching the light as she moved. "Ethan Carter," she said, her voice carrying across the space, "you are learning quickly, but speed alone does not matter. Strength without thought is useless. A leader must see what others cannot, hear what others ignore, and understand what others refuse to learn." Ethan nodded, feeling both awe and pressure. I will try to learn, Your Majesty." Alara studied him for a long moment, then gestured toward a group of beings who had been watching silently. They stepped forward, slender, tall, with faces that were both beautiful and strange. "These are my council," the queen explained. "They will help guide you, they will teach you our ways, and they will judge you, not to harm you but to see if you are worthy of her, of Leela." Ethan swallowed. The weight of her words pressed on him. He was not a noble, not a soldier, not a diplomat. He was a freighter pilot. Yet here he was, expected to navigate a world of power, rules, and alien intelligence with his life and freedom on the line. The council began to speak, one by one, testing him. "Describe the importance of balance," one said, her voice soft but sharp. "In our culture, balance is not just physical, it is mental, emotional, and social. How do you understand this?" Ethan thought quickly. "Balance is about seeing the consequences of your actions, about knowing what is right in one moment and what will cause harm in the next. You can't just act for yourself, you have to act for others too." A faint smile appeared on the counselor's face. "Good," she said. "You understand more than most humans would." Another counselor stepped forward, asking him questions about loyalty, courage, and patience. Ethan answered as best he could, relying on his instincts and experiences on Earth. He realized that despite the alien world, certain things, fear, hope, trust, were universal. After what felt like an eternity, Leela guided him to the palace library. The walls were lined with tall shelves, filled with devices that glowed faintly and seemed to hold knowledge directly within them. "You will read, study, and understand," she said. "We cannot force you to learn quickly, but we can give you the tools. Knowledge is as important as strength here." Ethan spent hours absorbing information about the alien society, their history, their conflicts, their technology. He learned about their fleet, their colonies, and the delicate balance of power they maintained across several star systems. Every fact deepened his understanding of the stakes. He realized that marrying Leela was not just a personal challenge. It was a political act, one that could have consequences far beyond himself. As he studied, Leela sat nearby, observing him quietly. Sometimes she spoke, offering explanations or context, but mostly she remained silent. Ethan noticed small things, the way she tilted her head when she was curious, the way her eyes followed his movements. Despite everything, he felt a strange comfort in her presence. Days turned into weeks. Ethan's body grew stronger, his mind sharper. He learned to anticipate the subtle gestures of the aliens around him, to interpret their expressions and movements. He began to understand the politics, the unspoken rules, and the hidden dangers. The training was grueling, but he survived. And in doing so, he discovered something within himself, a resilience he had never known existed. One evening, Queen Alara summoned him again. The throne room was bathed in a warm, golden light. Leela was there, standing slightly behind her mother, her expression unreadable. "Ethan," the queen said, "you have learned much, but knowledge and strength are not enough. You must understand loyalty, you must understand sacrifice. And you must understand love, not just the love you feel for another, but the love that binds a people together." Ethan nodded. "I understand," he said, though he wasn't sure he fully did. Alara stepped closer. "Tomorrow, you will meet with the leaders of other colonies. They will test you, they will challenge you, and you must prove that you are ready, not just to marry Leela, but to be part of something far greater than yourself." Ethan's stomach tightened. He had survived capture, training, and alien scrutiny, but this was new. He would face beings who were older, wiser, and far more experienced than he was. And yet he felt ready. The months of preparation had changed him. He was no longer the simple freighter pilot who had been taken captive. He was something more. That night he spoke quietly with Leela in the courtyard. "I don't know if I can do it," he admitted, the words heavy in the cool air. Leela shook her head gently. "You can. You have learned more than you realize. Fear is natural, but it cannot control you. Remember, you are not alone, I am with you, and we will face this together." Ethan looked at her, and for the first time he saw not just the alien princess, but a person, someone with hopes, fears, and strength. He realized that despite the strange world, despite the impossible circumstances, they were building a bond, however fragile it might be. The next day they traveled to the colony council chambers. The room was vast, with high ceilings and glowing walls. Representatives from different worlds waited, their expressions curious, cautious, and sometimes hostile. Ethan felt a pang of nervousness. This was more than a test, it was a trial by fire. The council began to speak, questioning him on his knowledge, his loyalty, and his intentions. They tested his understanding of the alien world, his willingness to accept responsibility, and his capacity to act with integrity. Ethan relied on everything he had learned. He spoke honestly, directly, and without fear. He did not hide his human origins, nor did he pretend to be something he was not. Hours passed. Some counselors nodded in approval, others remained skeptical. But by the end, Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. He had faced them on their terms and survived. More importantly, he had learned that survival was not enough. He had to thrive, to adapt, to become part of a world he had once thought impossible to navigate. When they returned to the palace, Leela smiled faintly. "You did well," she said, "better than I expected." Ethan shook his head. "I only survived. I don't know if I belong here yet." Leela placed a hand on his shoulder. "Belonging is something you earn, not something you are given, and you are earning it." That night Ethan lay awake in his quarters. The stars outside seemed different, larger, somehow more alive. He thought of Earth, of home, and of the impossible journey that had brought him here. And he realized that no matter what came next, no matter the trials, the politics, or the dangers, he had changed. He was no longer just a freighter pilot. He was someone who could face the unknown, survive, and even thrive. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet determination grew. He would not just survive this alien world. He would leave his mark on it. The morning air was cool, and the palace courtyard was quiet except for the soft hum of the alien world. Ethan Carter had grown accustomed to the strange rhythms of life here, but today felt different. Today, he was to meet representatives from neighboring colonies, beings who were not as friendly, who did not easily trust outsiders. The thought made his stomach tighten, yet he felt a strange sense of readiness. Leela met him at the entrance of the courtyard, her dark braids swinging as she moved. "They are waiting," she said. "Some will try to intimidate you. Some will try to test your patience. Remember what you have learned. Observe, listen, and speak carefully." Ethan nodded. He had trained for months under Leela and the council, and yet he could feel his heartbeat quicken. He had faced alien captors, survived physical training, and absorbed knowledge beyond his comprehension. But diplomacy, politics, and the judgments of multiple alien civilizations, this was uncharted territory. The transport to the council chambers was smooth, gliding over the city streets without sound. Ethan looked out the window at the alien architecture, towers that twisted toward the sky, glowing bridges that spanned distances no human city could match. The world was beautiful, strange, and intimidating all at once. When they arrived, representatives from 5 major colonies awaited them. Some were tall and thin, with skin that shimmered silver. Others were more solid and muscular, with rough textures across their faces. Their eyes varied in color and shape, watched Ethan with curiosity, suspicion, and in some cases outright disdain. One of the representatives, a tall male named Nalan, spoke first. "You are human," he said, his voice deep and commanding. "Why should we trust you? You come from a distant, weak world. You have no knowledge of our customs or our conflicts." Ethan swallowed. "I understand your concern," he said. "I am not your equal in experience, but I am willing to learn, to listen, and to act with integrity. I do not come to dominate, but to understand. My goal is not to take advantage, but to contribute, to survive, and to help maintain peace." A murmur passed through the room. Nalan raised an eyebrow. "Words are easy," he said. "Actions are harder. Tell me, human, what would you do if one of these colonies betrayed you or sought to harm those you care about?" Ethan thought carefully. His training had emphasized clarity, honesty, and calmness under pressure. "I would first seek understanding," he replied. "I would try to resolve conflict without violence. But if harm came to those who cannot defend themselves, I would protect them, even if it meant risking my own life. That is what honor demands." The representatives exchanged glances. Some nodded slightly, others remained skeptical. Another spoke, a female named Myra, her skin faintly golden, her eyes piercing. "You are bold for a human," she said, "but boldness can be foolish. Can you survive in a world where power and strategy matter more than courage or honor?" Ethan met her gaze. "I have survived worse than doubt. I have survived being captured, studied, and challenged by forces far stronger than myself. I have learned quickly, and I will continue to learn. Courage alone is not enough, I understand that. But understanding, adaptability, and the willingness to act, those are what will keep me alive and effective." For a long moment, the room was silent. Ethan could feel the tension, the quiet judgment. Then slowly Myra nodded. "Perhaps the human has potential," she said. "Time will tell if that potential is enough." Queen Alara stepped forward. "You see," she said to the council, "he is not just a human. He is a mind willing to adapt, a heart willing to act. And he is here not only for my daughter, but for all of us. Trust is built slowly, but courage and honesty are the foundation." Leela gave Ethan a small smile, pride in her eyes. "You are doing well," she whispered. The representatives were not entirely convinced, but they agreed to continue observing him. Over the next several days, Ethan was tested in many ways. He was asked to negotiate minor disputes, to solve problems that required logic and creativity, and to interact with alien customs that seemed almost impossible to understand. Each day, he felt both exhausted and exhilarated. During these days, Ethan and Leela spent more time together. Their conversations grew deeper, moving beyond training and etiquette. They spoke of Earth, of the places Ethan had known, and of the alien colonies, their fears and their hopes. Ethan realized that Leela was not just a princess. She was someone who had suffered loss, who had been forced to carry responsibility at a young age, and who had learned to be strong in ways he could only admire. One evening, as they walked along a terrace overlooking the glowing city, Ethan asked quietly, "Do you ever feel trapped, even here, even with power and knowledge?" Leela looked at him, her eyes reflecting the alien lights below. "Every day," she admitted. "I lost someone I loved. I am expected to lead, to marry, to maintain the peace of these colonies. My life is not my own, but sometimes I see hope, and sometimes I see someone who might understand me, not just as a ruler, but as a person." Ethan felt a warmth rise in his chest. "I want to understand," he said softly. "Even if it takes time, even if it's hard, I want to help, and I want to survive with you." Leela nodded, a small smile forming. "Then we will face it together. There is more to come, Ethan, more challenges, and more tests of loyalty, strength, and courage. But we are not alone." The next day, the council sent them on a mission to a nearby colony that had been experiencing unrest. It was a test not only of Ethan's abilities, but also of his judgment and leadership. The colony's leaders were distrustful and the inhabitants were tense. Ethan had to mediate disputes, find solutions to resource shortages, and calm fears that could have led to violence. He relied on what he had learned: observation, patience, empathy, and clear communication. Slowly, the colonists began to see him not as a human outsider, but as someone capable and trustworthy. Leela observed quietly, noting his growth, and at times intervening with guidance that helped him navigate unfamiliar customs. During one particularly tense moment, a fire broke out in a storage facility. Panic spread among the colonists, and a young worker froze, unable to act. Without hesitation, Ethan ran inside, grabbing supplies and directing people to safety. Leela followed, assisting, and together they managed to contain the damage. When the fire was extinguished, the colony leaders looked at him with newfound respect. Nalan, who had accompanied them, gave a small nod of approval. "Perhaps there is hope for the human," he said quietly. That night back in the palace, Ethan reflected on the day. He realized that survival was no longer enough. He had to lead, to protect, and to make decisions that affected many lives. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but he felt a sense of purpose he had never known on Earth. Leela joined him in the training courtyard. "You were brave today," she said softly, "but bravery is not enough. You must be wise. You must see the consequences of your actions, not just the immediate results." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I am learning. Every day I feel stronger, not just in body but in mind. And I feel like I belong here more than I ever thought I could." Leela smiled faintly. "Belonging is earned, Ethan, and you are earning it. But there will be greater challenges ahead. The galaxy is not kind, and not all beings will accept your presence. You must be ready for anything." Ethan felt the weight of her words, but he also felt determination. He had been captured, trained, tested, and observed. He had faced fear, uncertainty, and alien customs that seemed impossible to navigate. Yet here he was, standing strong, ready to face the trials that awaited him. And as he looked at Leela, he understood something more. Their bond was growing, built on trust, shared struggle, and quiet understanding. In a world so vast and dangerous, having someone to stand beside you could make the difference between survival and failure. The days that followed brought more challenges. Disputes among colonies, misunderstandings, and political intrigues tested Ethan in ways he had never imagined. Each time, he relied on his growing knowledge, his instincts, and his connection with Leela. And each time he proved that even a human, simple, untrained, and from a distant world, could rise to meet the demands of a galaxy far beyond his own. By the end of the month, Ethan had transformed. He was no longer just a captive freighter pilot. He was a negotiator, a problem solver, and a rising figure among the colonies. He had gained respect, learned the alien ways, and found a bond with Leela that went beyond duty. And yet, he knew the greatest challenges were still ahead. The galaxy was watching, and the choices he made next would determine not only his future, but the future of those who had come to trust him. The morning was quiet, but Ethan Carter felt a tension in the air he could not ignore. Something was wrong. Even the hum of the alien palace seemed off, slower, heavier, as if the walls themselves sensed danger. He walked with Leela through the courtyard, their steps echoing softly. "Something is coming," Ethan said quietly. Leela nodded, her eyes narrowing. "I feel it too. The Council has sent warnings. There are reports of raids near our borders. Not all colonies are peaceful. Some see weakness and they act." Ethan's chest tightened. He had learned much about the galaxy, its customs, and its dangers, but he had never faced direct threat. Not yet. He had trained, observed, and proven himself through diplomacy. Now it seemed the real test was about to begin. The alarm sounded suddenly, sharp and loud, reverberating through the palace. Lights flashed red, casting long shadows. Ethan felt his heart leap into his throat. "Raiders," Leela said. "They have crossed the border. They are coming for us." Within minutes, the palace was alive with movement. Alien guards rushed past, their energy weapons ready. Council members gave urgent orders and Queen Alara appeared at the central chamber, her expression calm but firm. "You have been prepared," she said to Ethan, her voice carrying authority. "Now you must act, protect the palace, protect my daughter, and show what humans are capable of." Ethan nodded. "I'm ready," he said, though fear churned in his stomach. Leela took his hand briefly, giving him a firm squeeze. "You are not alone," she said. "Remember your training, trust your instincts." Outside, the sky shimmered with the movement of alien ships. Dark shapes descended rapidly, firing pulses that lit up the palace walls. Ethan's breath caught. He had seen ships before, but this was an attack, a real one. The defenders moved with precision, energy shields igniting, weapons discharging, and alarms sounding continuously. Ethan and Leela were led to a command center. Holographic displays showed the positions of the attackers, their numbers, and their movements. "We are outnumbered," a counselor said, "but we have the advantage of preparation and home defense." Ethan studied the display, noting patterns in the enemy's attack. His mind worked quickly, recalling everything he had learned about strategy, observation, and prediction. "They are focusing on the northern wall," he said. "If we can reinforce it and counter their flanking ships, we can hold them long enough for reinforcements to arrive." Leela raised an eyebrow. "Do you think we can do it?" "We have to," Ethan said firmly. "We don't have a choice." "We survive or they win," Queen Alara nodded. "Then you lead the northern defense. Take those you need. I will manage the rest of the palace." Ethan gathered a small team of guards and council members. Among them were beings of strength, skill, and experience, but none who shared his human instincts. He felt the weight of responsibility, yet he did not hesitate. They moved to the northern wall, where the raiders were attempting to breach the defenses. The battle was chaotic. Pulses of energy lit the sky, and the sound of explosions echoed through the palace. Ethan dodged debris, directed defenders, and assessed the enemy's movements. Every instinct he had developed in the past months guided him: balance, observation, timing. At one point, a raider managed to break through a section of the wall. Ethan acted quickly, grabbing a plasma baton and engaging the intruder. His movements were fast, precise, a combination of training and raw instinct. The raider fell, and Ethan helped reinforce the breach before more could come through. Leela fought beside him, directing the palace defenders, her voice calm but commanding. She was not just a princess. She was a leader, and the bond between them strengthened as they fought together. They communicated silently with gestures and glances, covering each other, anticipating threats and adapting to the changing battlefield. Hours passed. Ethan's muscles burned, his lungs ached, but he did not falter. The raiders pressed again and again, but he and the defenders held. Using clever tactics, he guided small groups to flank the attackers, drawing them into traps and using the palace defenses to maximum effect. Slowly the tide began to turn. Then a message arrived from the palace command. "Reinforcements are on the way, but they will be delayed. You must hold until they arrive." Ethan took a deep breath, wiping sweat from his brow. "We can do this," he said to Leela and the team. "We hold, no retreat. Protect everyone or we lose everything." The raiders intensified their attack, firing in coordinated waves. Ethan noticed a pattern. They were using repeated movements, predictable angles, and the same flanking strategy. He directed his team to anticipate these moves, creating traps and ambush points. Each time an enemy fell, Ethan felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. At one point, Leela was nearly hit by an energy blast. Ethan dove, pulling her out of harm's way. She gasped but nodded, trusting him completely. In that moment, he realized that fear was a part of life, but courage was choosing to act despite it. As the hours dragged on, Ethan's team began to tire, but he refused to let them falter. He rotated defenders, adjusted strategies, and kept morale high. "We are stronger than they think," he said. and we will survive, together. Finally, reinforcements arrived. Ships from allied colonies descended, firing on the raiders and cutting off their retreat. The tide of battle turned decisively. The remaining attackers were either captured or forced to flee. The palace and its inhabitants were safe, for now. Ethan sank to the ground, exhausted, his body trembling from the strain. Leela knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You were incredible," she said softly. "You led, you protected, and you proved your strength, not just as a human but as someone worthy of this world." Ethan shook his head, disbelief in his eyes. I just did what I had to do," he said quietly. Leela smiled faintly. "That is what makes you extraordinary. You did not run. You did not falter. You acted even when it was impossible. That is why you survived and why you will thrive here." Queen Alara appeared, her expression solemn but proud. "Ethan Carter," she said, her voice carrying authority, "you have faced the test of fire and lived. You have shown courage, intelligence, and loyalty. You are no longer just a human from a distant world. You are a protector, a leader, and someone who belongs here. My daughter will be honored to have you by her side." Ethan felt a surge of relief and pride. He had faced impossible odds, survived, and earned respect, not just from aliens but from himself. He realized that he had changed, grown, and discovered strength he had never known existed. That night, as he sat with Leela on the palace terrace, watching the stars, he spoke quietly. "I didn't know if I could survive this world," he said, "but I did. And I think I've found a place here with you." Leela smiled softly, resting her hand on his. "We will face more challenges, Ethan. The galaxy is not done testing us, but we will face them together. You have proven yourself today, and that is only the beginning." Ethan looked out at the alien city, glowing and alive, and felt a quiet determination grow within him. He had been captured, tested, and challenged beyond imagination, but he had survived. And he knew, deep down, that nothing could stop him when he acted with courage, wisdom, and heart. The galaxy had tested the human, and the human had risen. The palace was quiet in the early morning, but the air was filled with tension. The raid had ended, but the aftermath remained. Ethan Carter walked alongside Leela, observing the repairs and the wounded. Despite the chaos, the palace defenders were moving with purpose, restoring order and preparing for any future threats. "You did more than survive," Leela said softly, breaking the silence. "You inspired them. You showed them that even a human, an outsider, can act with courage and wisdom." Ethan shook his head. "I just did what I had to. I was lucky to have you by my side. Without your guidance, I don't know if I could have managed." She smiled faintly, but there was pride in her eyes. "You underestimate yourself. Luck is part of life, but skill, courage, and determination, you have those in abundance. You've earned your place here." Queen Alara entered the courtyard, her expression calm but firm. "Ethan Carter," she said, her voice echoing slightly, "the raid has shown more than just the strength of our defenses. It has revealed your heart. You have led, protected, and adapted. You have proven that humans are not just fragile beings from distant worlds. You are a force to be respected." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what I could." Alara's gaze softened. "You have done more than that. And now the time has come for the next step. Leela awaits you. It is time to formalize what has already begun, your bond, your future together." Ethan felt a mixture of nerves and determination. The idea of marrying Leela, a being from a world so alien and complex, was still overwhelming. Yet he realized he had grown far beyond the frightened freighter pilot who had been captured months ago. He had faced danger, learned new ways of thinking, and proven himself in ways he never imagined. He could do this. Leela met him in the ceremonial hall. She wore a simple robe of soft green, her braid draped over her shoulder. Her expression was calm, but her eyes betrayed emotion, relief, hope, and something deeper that Ethan felt he could almost understand. "You are ready," she said softly. Not because the ceremony requires it, but because you have already become part of this world. Not just through duty, but through choice, courage, and heart. Ethan took a deep breath. I don't know if I could have done any of this without you, she smiled faintly. And you never had to. We did this together. That is the point. Strength is shared. Courage is shared. And love is shared as well. The ceremony began quietly, with representatives from multiple colonies attending. Ethan's heart raced as he stepped forward. He had faced raiders, learned alien customs, and proven himself in ways he never thought possible. And now he was here, not as a captive, not as an outsider, but as someone who had earned respect, trust, and a place in a galaxy far larger than Earth. Queen Alara spoke first. Today, we witness not just a union between two individuals, but a joining of hearts and worlds. Ethan Carter has shown courage, wisdom, and loyalty. Leela has shown trust, strength, and hope. Together, they represent a new future, one where humans and aliens can stand side by side, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals. Ethan looked at Leela. I promise to stand with you, to protect you, to learn with you, and to face whatever comes next, not just because I must, but because I want to. Leela reached for his hand, her touch warm and grounding. And I promise to stand with you as well. To trust you, to fight beside you, and to face the unknown together. This is not just a ceremony. It is the beginning of our shared path. The council and the attending representatives gave their blessing, acknowledging Ethan's courage and integrity. For the first time in his life, he felt truly accepted in a world so far from the one he had known. After the ceremony, the palace was filled with celebration. Alien music, lights, and laughter echoed through the halls. Ethan moved among the guests, feeling both strange and completely at home. He spoke with council members, shared stories with defenders, and laughed with Leela. It was a moment of unity, of triumph, and of hope. Later, as the crowd began to thin, Ethan and Leela walked together on the palace terrace. The city below shimmered with soft lights, towers stretching toward the stars. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace he had not known for months. We survived, he said quietly. More than that, we proved something. Humans are not just survivors. We can thrive, we can adapt, and we can stand strong even in worlds far from our own. Leela nodded, her eyes reflecting the lights of the city. You have shown that to everyone here. And you have shown it to yourself. That is the greatest strength of all. Ethan felt a warmth rise in his chest. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and dangers, but he realized he was ready. He was not just a freighter pilot anymore. He was a leader, a protector, and a partner. He had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, and he had risen. We have a future, Leela said softly. A future we will face together. There will be challenges, yes, but we are not alone. We have each other, and we have the people who now trust us. Ethan smiled, a quiet determination in his eyes. Then we face it. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The palace lights shimmered in the distance, casting long shadows across the terrace. Stars stretched endlessly above, a reminder of how far he had come and how much there was yet to explore. Ethan felt a sense of purpose and belonging that he had never imagined. In that moment, he understood the truth of the galaxy. It was not the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced who survived and thrived. It was those who had courage, intelligence, and heart, those who could adapt, learn, and face the unknown without fear. And humans, he realized with pride, were capable of all of these things. Leela leaned against him, her presence steady and reassuring. Ethan held her hand firmly. They had faced impossible odds and they had survived. They had grown stronger together and their bond was unbreakable. The future stretched out before them, vast, uncertain, and full of possibilities. And for the first time, Ethan did not feel fear. He felt ready. He felt alive. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Together, they would face whatever the galaxy had in store. Together, they would thrive. Together, they would show that humans, even from distant, fragile worlds, could rise to meet the challenges of a vast and dangerous universe and emerge stronger than ever. The stars above twinkled, silent witnesses to a human who had been captured, tested, and transformed. A human who had proven that courage, wisdom, and heart were stronger than fear. A human who would stand beside Leela, not just as a survivor, but as a force to be reckoned with in a galaxy that had underestimated humanity. And for the first time, Ethan Carter felt truly free.